okay? This is the Hebraic cosmological paradigm of the antediluvian world. This is the Hebraic paradigm of the Golden Age, of Zep Tepi. Because the ancient Mesopotamians and the ancient Egyptians and the Greeks and the Romans and all the rest of them, they believe that the very same thing occurred. That the gods descended to the earth. That they copulated with human women. I mean, look at Atlantis, the story of Atlantis. Everybody knows about the city of Atlantis and the legend of Atlantis. But very few people pay attention to what Plato writes in the Timaeus and Critias dialogue, where he talks about Atlantis. He has Solon of Athens traveling to Egypt, and he's being informed by the priest of Sais about the extraordinary past of the Athenians that he's unaware of. And part of this past involves this conflict that they had, this epic conflict with Atlantis and the Atlanteans. And they tell him the whole story, right? And everybody's familiar with Atlantis, that Atlantis was this advanced ancient city.
It's a great resort in the Caribbean.
Right, that as well, yes. It still exists today.
In a slightly degraded form, perfectly pleasant.
It does. So that Atlantis was this advanced civilization that was destroyed in a day and a night in cataclysm, right? But Plato has the priest of Sais telling Solon in the dialogue the full story. And what's the beginning of the story of Atlantis? The beginning of the story of Atlantis is that the gods who descended to the earth are apportioning the earth amongst themselves. They're creating an empire, and they're dividing up their kingdoms. And Poseidon, for his lot, he got the area of Atlantis, the region that would become Atlantis. So what does he do? He builds Atlantis. He raises up an island out of the sea, which is ultimately going to be the home of this city Atlantis. But what does he do after this, or during this? He becomes enamored of a human woman named Cleito, and he takes her as his wife. And he copulates with her. And she gives birth to 5 sets of twin sons who will become the 10 kings of Atlantis. And these are giants. Atlas, for example, he's the chief among them. That's the backstory. So what do we see here? Well, this is a one-to-one match with the book of Enoch in Genesis 6. Is it not? It's the gods descending to the earth, taking human women as their wives, having intercourse with them, and progenerating a race of demigod giants. This is everywhere. It's just like the megaliths that we were talking about. This is called the Golden Age. And I believe that it's literally true, that literally happened in the time before the Great Flood. And I believe in the ubiquitous testimony of our ancient ancestors. And in fact, the Egyptians informed Solon. It was in the midst of the conflict because this Atlantean empire became expansionary, they became aggressive, and they were going on conquest, and they were steamrolling everybody that they encountered until they encountered the Athenians, who were the only faction that was able to resist them, and they're locked into this epic war, the Atlanteans versus the Athenians, and then cataclysm. Cataclysm destroys Atlantis, and everyone else, not just Atlantis. It's a global cataclysm. And the Egyptians kept record of this, and they told Solon that wasn't the only cataclysm. There have been many cataclysms, because they believed it was cyclic. That the cataclysm is cyclic. That there's this celestial timepiece, the zodiac, that the primary function of which is to keep track of when the cataclysm is going to occur again. So this is how the ancients viewed. So if you were to, and I'm not saying, by the way, that means that the pyramids were built by giants or anything like that. I don't want people to think that. I don't know who built the Great Pyramids. But I do believe that many of these extraordinary megalithic sites around the world, like Baalbek, were built in the age before the flood. And it had something to do with the knowledge of the gods who descended to the earth. That's what the ancients say. That's what they all say.